Now it's you. Ready?
Now.
Hi, everybody.
I have been welcoming everyone for the last 2 minutes. So
No,
this
30
is
seconds.
gonna
Last 30 seconds.
true wholehearted welcome everyone.
Take it away, Misha.
Go ahead, Justin.
Oh, I was going to say, take it away. Everyone, we're missing our third in our trio right now.
Yeah.
Catherine is up in Maryland, and they're getting hit with some storms, so there is no power and no Wi-Fi to hop on. So we miss her, but we're gonna move along like she was with us and let Misha really take the lead today.
Yeah. Hi everyone. As Justin had said, I'm Misha. And big thing for today. So for those of you that are new, this is the second part of our 4-part webinar series. 2 weeks ago, Justin knocked it out of the park talking about brand strategy, looking at your primary audience and really a lot of brand positioning. Today, we're going to talk about one of my favorite things, which is websites. But before I get into too much of talking about websites and stuff, Justin, I'd love for you to take a few minutes in your own words. For those people who weren't here in the first webinar series, why don't you introduce yourself, introduce Mercury Creative Group, and then I'll take it back over.
Awesome. Thanks, Misha. Hello, everyone. So Justin here. I'm the founder and brand advisor of Mercury, as in the Planet Creative Group. And what we shared 2 weeks ago was a key part of the process that we do when we take organizations through a brand transformation is spend time getting super, super clear on who is that primary audience that's in the center of your bullseye that makes you the most money, brings you the most joy and fun to work with, and really get super clear on who they are, what they need, and how do we find more of them. So the work that we did last week was helping you all sort of understand how do you find out who your primary audience is, so it brings clarity and confidence and just a smarter way to go about your marketing and design communication needs, which rolls right into your biggest marketing opportunity, your tool that is 24/7 speaking the truth for your organization or the products that you go to market with. And that's what Misha is going to talk about today. So and maybe just really quick, Catherine, who can't be here, is going to be showing up in 2 weeks to really talk about how do you get that site optimized and look at the SEO aspects to find those right people so they can get to your website and go down that journey to pick up the phone or shoot you a message to start that conversation.
Yeah, and to build on that too, I know one of the things Catherine's going to talk about, we're going to talk about it a little bit here too, but some methods, some strategies to also potentially use AI in those places when you're focusing on SEO and looking at some of that traffic as well. Yeah. So I know that's really big in her speaking engagements, and some of the topics is how do you utilize AI, ChatGPT, things like that. So join us again in 2 weeks, right?
Yes.
So I will say I'm going to do a quick introduction of myself before we kind of roll into a lot of this. So for those of you that don't know, again, my name is Misha. I'm the founder of Red Tree. We specialize 100% in websites. More specifically, we have a clear focus in creating websites that balance creativity as well as functionality. Although we're based in Pittsburgh, so I'm not too far away from the Maryland storm that's going on, but we're not experiencing that, hopefully. We just had a horrible storm in Pittsburgh. I do not want to do that again. So I feel for Catherine right now. But even though we're based inside of Pittsburgh right now, we have a national team and a global client base. Our primary, target audience that we're talking to is a lot of brands inside of the B2B space and the e-commerce space. Mostly, we're looking for brands that enjoy collaboration. So for us, that's the foundation of everything that we do. They know their brands, we know websites, and together we can really create something awesome. So I'm going to dive into what we're going to talk about a little bit today. And let me get some of the technical feasibility going here.
I just want to, while you're doing that, thanks everybody for letting us know where you're at and what you're looking for. I'm kind of taking some notes so we can hopefully address some of those reasons you came here today.
Thank you for that. That is also a perfect segue. I do want to say, without Catherine being here, please, bring in, we really want this to be as collaborative as humanly possible. So if you have questions, drop them in the comments. We're going to have a little bit more of a rapport. This is going to be more of a conversation. I'm going to present some methodologies and some sort of thoughts, but I really do want this to be more impactful. So drop your comments, drop your questions in the comments. We have someone sort of moderating that. Don't worry about sort of interrupting the flow or anything along those lines.
Yeah.
So quick recap. So we talked a little bit about this, right? So 2 weeks ago, Justin talked a lot about aligning brand strategy. And our goal for this webinar is to show you how all of this starts to build on top of each other. So number one, as Justin had mentioned, we're talking 2 weeks ago about that target audience. We're going to talk today about how you have your website be the ultimate source of truth. Catherine's going to talk about SEO growth. And then the final portion is just going to be a jam session, right? We're going to have a conversation. Bring those questions. You got 3 experts at your fingertips. Bring your questions. We'll talk about them. We'll present some strategies and some experiences that we have. Now, the first thing that I really want to talk about is specifically websites, right? So what are we going to talk about today? I broke this down into essentially 2 different sort of elements. One is, how can you start to design and think about your primary audience and what it is that you need to say to them? Secondly, we're going to focus on the 3 things. I should probably come up with a better branded term than that, but we're going to focus on the 3 things to really focus on for your homepage to pass what we refer to as the 5-second test. And then the last thing is we're going to use a real life example of one of our clients for junior achievement and how we've taken that 3 things and the 5-second test and really pulled that out in their individual homepage. So first thing I want to really talk about is the primary audience that Justin was talking about 2 weeks ago. So let's look at, again, junior achievement and their primary audience. We're calling her Erica. Really a high level view here, right? Her background, she is a mid-career educator. She's a school administrator. One of her needs is clear and easy to adopt programs, meaningful student outcomes. And some of the challenges that she has, right, is balancing many responsibilities. She's got limited time for research. And a big behavior metric to really look at here is from that minimal time, she doesn't have a whole bunch of time to evaluate a website. And then she needs to make really important decisions very quickly. Now, I'm going to stop here for just 2 seconds. One of the biggest mistakes that I see a lot of people making with their websites is they think too much about what they want to say versus what users need to see. So when you really start with your users and really pull out some of those pain points that Justin was talking about, thinking about their behaviors and their challenges, then you can start to create a website that aligns with what it is that they need. Now, sometimes this can be hard. I will take a quick sidestep and say sometimes this is really hard. And I will speak from my own experience. It's very challenging for me as the person providing services and as that expert to really know what it is that people need to see. And Justin talked a lot about this. This is when we would highly suggest conversations. Conversations with your clients. What do they need to see from your brand? What are some of their challenges? And then what do they need to see specifically from websites? What did you need to see whenever you came and you were thinking about using junior achievement versus any other kind of, educational or learning experiences for your students? So those types of conversations are really, really vital. Another alternative, which isn't necessarily my favorite, but is an option in the AI world, is to try to have some conversations with AI to really pull some of that information out of you as the experts. So if you go into AI, ChatGPT, Perplexity, you can say, ask me some questions of what traditional educators might have about websites or have about learning experiences. And then chat comes in from an unbiased place and starts to pull out some of those things, or even just brings in an unbiased, unexpert opinion. But this is the foundation of everything that you should be looking at whenever it comes to your website. What does your audience need to see? Which leads me very, very eloquently into our next portion. What does your audience need to see? And that is where this 3 things to check really come into play. We call it the 5-second test, and we call it the 5-second test because I don't know if you know this, but most people on the web have the attention span of a gnat, right? You have 5 seconds to hook a user to stay on your site. And honestly, that's even pretty gracious. There are some that are like, you got 2 seconds, right? Depending on, if we're looking at like C-level suite people, right, who might be doing research, you've got 2 seconds. We usually like to say around 5 seconds. So within that 5 seconds, are you clearly articulating what it is that your business does, what it is that makes you different from all of your competitors, and what action do you want them to take? What do they need to see as a next step? So we see this as being one of the biggest mistakes a lot of people make on a homepage. And if you can clearly articulate those 3 things, then essentially you've passed that 5-second test. Someone knows that you can provide the services that you want, that what is making you different from the other competitors that they're looking at. And then additionally, when they want to go and learn more, either potentially about your services, about your brand, or even the work that you've experienced, that is quickly and easily accessible. Now, I always tell people as well, one of the additional things to think about with your 5-second test is a user should be able to see all 3 of these before they click, scroll, or take any kind of an action on their site. So most of the time, if you think about a website, it's inside of that general hero area where you would very clearly say what it is that you do, what makes you different, and where you want a user to go to next. Now, the next portion varies, right? This is why I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the case study. The next step that you want users to take really depends on your brand, how it is that you want to position your brand, and what it is that you want to move forward with. So we'll talk a little bit about junior achievement, but for Red Tree's case, I want people to see our portfolio. I stand behind our work. So I'm going to talk very eloquently about what it is that we do, what makes us different, and then I want people to go see our portfolio. We have some brands that we work with that really want to showcase more of their people. And they say, majority of people that come into my site, they already know what it is that we do. We're in that evaluation stage. We really want to have our people be shining more than the work that we're doing, more than the services that we're providing. So we want majority of people to go to our About page. That is a brand decision that a lot of people will make after you start to really think about, again, the users coming into your site. Now, before I get into the case study, I'm going to take a quick drink of water. So let's see how this kind of comes to play with junior achievement. So this is just a quick screen grab of junior achievement and their actual homepage. So let's talk a little bit about what junior achievement does, right? Their overall mission is to inspire and prepare young people to proceed. One of the things that makes them a little bit different is that they have multiple paths of learning from either age groups and or subject matters, right? So do you have a 8 to 10-year-old, or do you have a child that wants to learn about financial literacy, right? So we've got 2 different pathways that junior achievement can offer. And then their call to action is to start to explore some learning experiences. So when we're thinking about Erica for the Junior Achievement homepage, we're really trying to think, all right, what does Erica need to see? So Erica wants to see that they're transforming potential into future achievements. She wants to align that doing the best for her client or for her students is that first iteration. And then the next thing is she wants to see the experiences very fast. She doesn't have time. She's being pulled in a million different directions. She wants to see her options. And then even if she were to scroll down, which goes against the 5-second test, she can start to see, hey, there's programs by grade and there's programs by pathways. Again, giving her an opportunity to very quickly see all of the options and make decisions, because she has to make high impact decisions very quickly. The biggest thing I will also say is this sometimes can be very challenging to try to pull a lot of these things out. And again, we're going to go back over to having some of those conversations with your primary audience. Ask your primary audience, bribe them with a lunch, if you will, or ask them in an email. What did you need to see from my website in order to qualify for you to learn a little bit more? People are more than happy to give their opinion, especially if you make it in a way that is super easy for them to provide that individual feedback. So I am going to stop there and see what kind of questions, what kind of additional information that I can provide. Let's see how we stop.
Oh, well, I have a question right away. So the 5-second, why is that so critical today?
It's so unbelievably critical. Honestly, Justin, it's just because people don't have the attention spans for it. And they, especially if you think about Erica, for example, she has to make a lot of decisions really quickly. So being able to show the right amount of information, connecting to that emotional portion of a user and knowing that they understand what it is that you need, that gets them to stay there. That gets them to engage a little bit more. So we are in a society of quick turnarounds right now. We need that to essentially hook someone.
So what what is the right amount of information?
Ooh, that's a great question. Well, I would say if it takes an average user longer than 5 seconds to read all of your content, that's probably a good metric right there. But the biggest thing is the shorter, the better. Be more impactful. It shouldn't be as long-winded. And this is probably where a content writer would come into play a little bit more, but I know that there are ways of sort of removing the last thing that you wrote or the last thing that you put on, but it's really being very intentional about every single word that you put on there. Can I take out, these 5 words and that impact is still there? It's being really, really intentional about the amount of content and making sure that that impact is there. And again, so I don't know if anyone knows this. Let me briefly explain. So there's a thing called above the fold, and it's a website term that we use a lot. Is actually derived from newspapers, right? So if you think about it, newspapers were folded in half, and that half portion is what are people needing to see above the fold. If your content also doesn't fit in an average browser window above the fold, that is another indication that you have too much.
So I would add to the buckets of information that it's bite size. You're using visuals, color, typography, different sizes to sort of lure them in to get them to take that next step, right? So I think what you're saying is how much can you get in the above the fold?
Correct.
That's hitting that primary audience right where they feel it, so they can take that next action.
Yes. Yeah. And when you're looking at a lot of, because you mentioned really quickly about design, one of the things to also really think about is if you have like a color palette, that a lot of your buttons, right? So we talked a little bit about junior achievement. Those buttons are very vibrant and they're action oriented as well. So when you have a button, make sure that that is not lost, if you will, that should be just as predominant as a lot of your text on the page. So no one should be guessing about what I'm supposed to be clicking in order to get to that next step. So if you have a color palette and it's relatively, you have a good vibrant color inside of there, we always suggest using those vibrant colors as your button color, just to ensue more action. It's very drawing. That would be our best recommendations about different color hierarchy as well.
Misha, some of the questions I was writing down. Oops, we have a question. Karina, thinking about different screen sizes and shapes, is there a standard for determining where the fold is?
Yeah, so the fold is going to be different, obviously, in each one of your sizes. So primarily we're looking at desktop, but most heroes will respond to the various sizes of devices that's being rendered. So most of the time, whatever's inside of your hero will actually show above the fold on a mobile as well as an iPad. Even if you're using something like Squarespace or anything along those lines, let me quickly step back. One of the terms that I use is called responsive design, and it's just taking a lot of your content and it's responding it down. So the font size, for example, you might see on a desktop is going to be a little bit smaller on a phone, and they do that for a reason, right? So we're closer to our phones and it needs to fit into a smaller device. So most of the time, that 5-second rule that we talked about, what are you doing? What's your differentiator and what's that action item? Should always be above the fold, no matter what device it is that you're on.
They're flying in. Beth, with so many people assessing websites via their mobile devices, is there additional advice to give regarding design?
It's a great question. I would say one of the biggest things of incorporating your design as you're thinking about mobile is making sure that it's accessible. So that's number one. Making sure that your site is actually responding down and that your font is decreasing, those buttons are accurate, and honestly that it's rendering correctly as well. There's a lot of mobile designs that are not rendering down. But outside of that, it should be fairly consistent with your desktop. So you don't want to make it seem completely different from your desktop view or the different devices. So a lot of the things, the decisions you make in desktop should render really well inside of mobile, but always make sure that you're checking it. So a lot of people don't think to check it. And a lot of, if you have someone custom building it, they'll be able to check that. But if you're using something like a drag and drop solution, they have view options for you to see, and it's almost a completely different experience as well.
I have, well, you were talking, when you work with some clients and you see their website and it fails the 5-second test, how do you work with them? So for some of our audience right now, like, what's that process that you would take somebody through?
Yeah, our traditional process starts much like any marketing agency. We start with a discovery process where we get an initial download. But from our standpoint, it's kind of varies depending on each one of the clients. Some clients want us to do what's referred to as stakeholder interviews, where we can talk to their target audience or their current customers. What did they need to see, and so on and so forth. Other times we do what's referred to as like making assumptions based off of what your brand position is, based off of your experience. What does a user need to see? So that's one of the biggest ones, is we get that initial download, and then our team is really good because we've been doing this for a little while, where we ask what refer to as tier 2 questions. Let's dive a little bit deeper. You're going to give me demographics about your users, but I want to understand those pain points. And when you talk about those pain points, we're going to drill a little bit deeper, which again is very challenging to do for someone who is inside of a brand. And that's another reason why I was talking a lot about, like, you can use AI, because sometimes it just requires someone to pull that stuff out or to ask that sort of follow-up question to make sure that something is crystal clear. You could even potentially do it with a good friend, right? So pulling out some of that information is very, very vital. But from our standpoint, we know enough based off of all of our user research in positioning a lot of brands, what people need to see in both of those different areas, whether or not we're making assumptions and we're just pushing that out. And if we do make assumptions, then we make sure that we're circling back and looking at data. So sometimes we make assumptions, we'll launch something, but then we have a lot of detailed data tracking to either reinforce our decisions or to not reinforce that. And then we need to start making some changes.
Thanks, Danya. Hi, Lisa. What is the deal with ADA compliance in terms of websites?
Yeah.
That
So
could be a real big question. So,
yeah, ADA compliancy is so ADA. It's like half of this is like I got my lawyer in the back of my head where it's like the ADA compliancy is not 100% set, right? But we want all of our websites to be ADA compliant. And I know from Redtree standpoint, we always think about, and let me take a step back just for those of you who don't know, ADA, adults with disabilities. And if you think about that from a website standpoint, an easy correlation is color contrast, right? So someone might not be able to render color as well. They may have like a visual disability. And what I may be able to see fine, they can't because the color contrast is so close, right? So if you put like a white on top of a light gray, that's not going to pass for people that have visual disabilities. So the challenge with ADA compliancy is there's no real law that is set that says this is definitively what it is you need to do. And that's, again, you know, my lawyer sort of back there. And it also varies on brand to brand. The biggest suggestion that I tell everyone is making sure that you're keeping that top of mind when you're making some of those design decisions, that you want things to be easily read, responded down. There's a tab feature where if someone is doing screen reading, you can easily render a lot of your website. The other alternative is to use two tools that we recommend. One is called User Way, and then another one is called Accessibility. These are tools, they're referred to as skins that go over top of your website. And you can look at it on the Redtree website, actually, we have it. And someone who needs a higher contrast screen reader, whatever that is, those tools will overlay and allow that website to be a little bit more accessible. So those are my two biggest recommendations, is to build in that tool. I want to say it's like $150 a year, maybe like $250, but it allows your site to pass ADA compliancy in all facets.
I would add just talk to your web vendor or connect with Misha after this too, that utilize the experts about those compliance needs, and also coming back to who is that primary audience. And if you're serving a specific demographic or audience that you really need to pay attention to the ADA compliance, for example, bring in the experts and make sure that your site is performing as it should to make it easy and accessible for all. Utilizing audio as well. Audio is another way to consider. You can bring back up, is it Mika or Micah? I'm gonna, thanks. I work for a professional membership association with a wide range of services and resources. Our visitors often have some general awareness, but there's frequent confusion between us and related government entities, such as partners, not competitors. When applying the 5-second rule, how do you recommend balancing clarity and value, especially when multiple internal stakeholders who've invested significant effort are also competing for prominent space on the homepage?
I would say then one of the biggest things that I would say in that instance, and there are multiple stakeholders in most websites that you need to come in and see the same things. I would then potentially break it down more into pain points and or like what does each person need to see, and not an audience, right? So what are the needs of each one of the users? And from my experience, it has been able to sort of roll up into specific pain points or what it is that someone needs to see, even if it's multiple different audiences that might need to see that one thing versus the other thing. Additionally, I will say sometimes there is a case where with the 5-second rule, that action can be 3 different things. So we've had one client, for example, who was looking for, I forget the name of it, but like before you get pregnant, infertility services, pregnancy, as well as like daycare. These are 3 different audiences, and they needed to go to 3 different areas. The organization had the same sort of mission and can connect to all 3 of those people, but they needed to go see different things. The daycare person and the infertility person needed to see different things. So sometimes it is okay to have that action item for that next thing that a user needs to see, can be 3, but I would highly suggest trying to figure out if that is actually needed.
I will jump in.
Yeah.
I would take time with your leadership group to really define who is that primary member that is in the center of your bullseye. I guarantee you there's one that is, in general, the one that you should be focusing all of your efforts at, because if you do that, your sponsors or vendors are going to see that and they just want to get in front of more of those people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm using that as an example. Plus, that's what we've experienced working with a lot of associations. So when you start to do everything for everyone, you're nothing. So you're not going to connect with that ideal member that you're really looking to connect with. So I would bring that conversation back to leadership to really get super specific on who it is you help the most and what it is they need. And then it'll be much easier to take that 5-second test or to make strong decisions on what to do with your website to drive that specific user then to the next step to do something else. And also, once you know that that's your ideal member, that primary person in the center of your bullseye, how does that affect your secondary or tertiary audiences, what you might be thinking of? What is their path then? So go right back to who is it that you want more of to come visit to your website to do something for you, your organization, the expertise that you provide.
And I will add one additional thing sometimes. Micah had sort of put in there that sometimes it's not clear. So I think sometimes, just as a quick side note, is like you're still going to have people that are going to have a lot of questions, even if you're crystal clear for a lot of your other users as well. Sometimes that does happen. And I would try to lean more towards the group versus maybe like 1 or 2. And again, I don't know your situation, but if there's only 1 or 2 people who might be confused, don't change the whole boat, basically, in the whole direction.
Yeah, I would offer if they're confused, they might not be the right person to be on your site or you to be working with. So in general, Misha, there was a couple guests that are visiting and they're looking to refresh their website. They are new to the organization and they know that this is something that they need to do. Could you provide some sort of simple advice to help some of our guests today of like what steps could they take next, knowing just a little bit of what we've shared today?
Yeah, a couple of things I will say, sort of next steps is, again, I'm going to go back to this whole, if you've got a larger organizations or if you just have this sort of gut feeling that your site isn't working as well, then I would potentially sit down with your site, with your target audience, and try to have a conversation or review some things or get some of that general feedback, right? So in an age of a world where we're in technology and we don't want to talk as much to people, I think it can be wildly beneficial. Additionally, one thing I will say is one of the biggest pitfalls that I see is people using what we refer to as like industry speak. So I would severely look at your whole site and say, is there anything that if I never knew the brand, I didn't know what it is that you did, right? Do I know what learning experiences is? Do I know what your workplace development it called? Or are you using your sort of branded term to define those? So secondly is it very, very clear what all of your services are and what it is that you would do? And then third, which we talked a lot about, some people had asked, I'm still seeing a lot of people who are not thinking about their website rendered on phones. And I would say that's one of the biggest things when we're starting to think about, we've mentioned AI a few times, we're starting to see AI as almost taking over a lot of search engine, searches. People are going to AI to say, hey, give me a web design company, and that AI is going to go and check all of these things. And one of those things that they're really looking at is your mobile responsiveness. And we've been talking about this for a really long time, but a lot of people still aren't focusing on it and or looking at it. So just look at it and make sure that it's rendering well. That's what we refer to as like a lot of technical SEO. So we do actually have a really great article. If anyone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, talking about generative engine optimization, is that, how you get ranked in AI. But a lot of this stuff is still the same thing as far as SEO goes, which I'm sure Catherine will talk a little bit about in 2 weeks.
Yeah, a little pitch for check back in 2 weeks, because we know that that's going to be a discussion, but also a lot more questions brought up.
Yeah.
When you were going through all this, what popped up into my head when we're talking with our clients, think of your website as it's never done, and I think it's your second largest project you'll work on as a brand or marketing expert, because that website is big. It has to have the right information for that right person. It's working for you 24/7. Technology is changing constantly, so it's not a one and done. So, is there? We have some people coming in here that are looking to sort of refresh their site, how to rethink about their website in general. Can you share? I wrote down maintaining momentum. How do you keep your website not necessarily fresh and alive, but like how do you keep evolving your website, Misha, over time?
I think it's just one of those things. Like it's not too much of a methodology or a big math equation here. It's just that you should be revisiting your site. So what I see a lot of brands doing is they'll say, we've just let that site sit for so long now that we're just going to sort of blow it up. And there's nothing wrong with that per se, but if you constantly are looking at your brand and saying, hey, looking at your website and saying, hey, our brand shifted, our target audience shifted just a little bit. How can we start to really connect with that new primary audience or even that new brand positioning on our site? And that's one of the things I will say is a lot of people, to Justin's point, will make a site and then potentially like let it sit. And they'll say, we're primarily referral-based business, or we're word of mouth business. Or I'm getting a lot of things that are saying like websites are dead now, right? People are finding everyone on LinkedIn or social media. And I actually will severely disagree with all of that. And I would just challenge most people to think about your own consumer behavior. And if you get a referral or if you get a word of mouth, what's the first thing that you're going to go do? You're probably going to go check out their website and just see who they are, what it is that they're doing, what makes them a little bit different. And then you might go back to that sort of referral source if it's by email or text or whatever, but you're still going to go and check out this brand before you officially buy in. So that's one of the things to really think about is if you're not thinking your website is a vital part of your sales and marketing, it really is. And sometimes it's just, I like to think of this as, if we continually ignore our garages, right, and just continually keep throwing junk in there, it's going to be really hard for us to clean it all out and then to organize it all. But if you're in there constantly and you're constantly maintaining it, it's a lot less of a challenge. And what I don't want to see is like people let something sit for 5 years and then they re-blow it up. There's really no need for it. You just need to revisit it, relook at it, and make sure that a lot of things that have changed inside your business, your brand, are being reflected upon your website.
Great. And it's springtime, everyone. So time to clean out that garage, right? Throw some shit out and get
Or
the right stuff
closet
in
for our
there.
apartment people. I guess I should say probably everyone's got a closet that they probably, or junk drawer, if whichever one it is that you have.
I want to. I'm getting an answer. So I posed Charlotte to give me a little bit more detail. So the question was, we've been told that it doesn't seem like we're experts because our website doesn't use technical terms. And I just wanted her to go in a little bit and elaborate. So Charlotte's sharing most of our target persona are healthcare C-suite individuals, and the average person won't understand our industry language. I'm going to go back to really come back to who is that person that's in the center of your bullseye, and how do they want to receive information. And maybe they don't need that industry jargon. That's not what they're looking for. Then you are that expert that will help determine what are the right words to connect with that right audience you want to affect change with the most. And it'll give you the confidence to tell someone else who is saying you're not an expert, because you are an expert. You are an expert, and you do know what you're talking about, because you've done your homework. So I hope that helps. Karina, from a PR perspective, media will check out your website too if you reach out to them at all for interviews, story pitches. Absolutely. And we know Karina, client, so that website is that vehicle that is helping you connect with global leaders, global media outlets that will help elevate or draw attention to the work that you're doing or the members that you are part of your community. So that just comes back to having the right website with the right information is going to help those people find those things in that cleaned out, organized garage, right? To get what they need to perform their job, which in the end is helping you the most. We're
Yeah,
also
and
coming at time, so I just want to be we could probably continue with questions, but I want to make sure respectful of our 30 minutes and 50 minutes question and answer. So if there's any more questions, shoot them in here really quick. Otherwise, we'll start to wrap up.
I will add on to that. We've had cases. I agree with the primary audience. We have had cases more in the tech space where the website needs to serve the CTO that has the attention span of like nothing. And then we also need to target the engineer who's going to go out and vet the different companies. So the engineer wants to know every little detail about the services that they're providing and all of these technical terms. But the website needed to serve the 2-second attention span for the CTO, as well as the detail-oriented engineer that was doing a lot of the research. And I think if you drill it down to maybe potentially case studies, for example, at that point in time when you start to develop out your case studies, what are some of the 3 to 5 bullet items that a CTO needs to see? And then further down inside of a case study, you get really super detail of the technical terms that you're using. But then that way, that case study is serving both audiences, right? So I know we talked a lot about homepage, but I was trying to pull one together relatively succinctly to talk about those two different audiences as well.
I love that. It's kind of like go wide with your headline, but it's still relevant, but then get very specific and deep for that client success story.
Yeah.
We have one. I'm sorry. I'm trying to read these. I'm reading. Is it Micah or Mika? Oh, it's up here. So, as part of our efforts to improve clarity and user experience, we recently started a process where we sort our website pages by least recently modified and dedicated about 2 hours a month to reviewing and updating them. Good for you. There's that ongoing, that's keep maintaining. The goal is to work through the entire site at least once per year. It's just one piece of our larger content strategy. But so far, it's been a helpful way to catch outdated material and ensure what remains in timely and relevant. That's beautiful. This is everyone should be considering and doing this. That's cleaning out that garage, keeping it organized, and also you're not hit with all of this work at once, which becomes overwhelming and just everyone then hates it. You're biting off pieces as you can go. So thank you.
And I will add into that real quick, Micah, is so just making sure, let's continue to use the garage closet analysis. There might be some that just need to be deleted, right? So some of the pages, if you're starting to see decreased traffic, it's actually better for you just to archive those pages and then potentially redirect versus having what we refer to as a dead page. And again, very high level, I don't know the actual example. I love the intentionality of going back to them, but sometimes just like our cleaning out our garage, we can throw that book away that was really sentimental to us and had like this, well, not really, but like, you understand what I mean. You could potentially delete some of those things just like we could delete throw away things in our garage.
Yes, deleting is refreshing.
It does feel really good, Micah. Yes, it does.
Misha, what's next? What can we set them up for Catherine, who's being rained on, unfortunately? And
yeah, poor Catherine. Yeah, I think one of the next things to really think about is like driving that traffic. Really thinking about, one of the things we talk about at Redtree is the first touch point that most users have is via search engine result pages. So Google, Bing, these days, chat, right? How do you get that ranking and how do you drive some of that traffic? And I know Catherine's going to talk a lot about that. Additionally, we haven't, for anyone that isn't already connected with myself or Redtree, we do have a newsletter. Thank you, that is currently up. We have a newsletter. We have a lot of fun with it. Our goal is to kind of share as much industry knowledge, really give some great takeaways. It's really not a buy our services or anything along those lines. It's, hey, these are some things to really think about with your site, maybe some use cases and things along those lines. We're having, like I said, a lot of fun with it, but our goal is to make sure that we're adding a lot of value in a very confusing space.
Mm-hmm. Her newsletter is also very fun. So, and not a lot of technical jargon, a little silly, because I like silly. So, do sign up, everyone. Thank you, everyone. This has been really fun to see the conversation and the questions, and this is why we're doing this, because the technology is changing, our buyer behaviors are changing rapidly. So we get to learn also what the questions are, and so we enjoy this, and this is why we did this. So thanks for really kind of being part of this and asking us those questions. We look forward to seeing you all in 2 weeks, where Catherine will take the lead, and then in 2 weeks after that, we're going to kind of have an open panel. So we're going to take a lot of these questions, dissect them a little further, and have more of you back to ask us more questions and put us on the spot. That's what we're here to do. We're here to help you.
Yeah.
So on that, make it a great rest of your week, everybody, and thank you. So,
bye, everyone.
Yeah.